Okay. I just recorded a perfect 9-minute video, but my mic wasn't turned on, so take two. I'm putting together just a little short video to go along with the assignment, the first paper assignment description that I just posted a moment ago. And this is just meant to help kind of talk through the thinking behind the assignment and give you a little bit more, hopefully some more context and insight into what's going on here and why we're doing this. So by now, we're in the third week of the semester, so by now you should have a good handle on the four main models of rhetoric. Last week we looked through the sophistic model and Gorgias. This week it's all about Plato. Next week it's Aristotle, and on. The first paper assignment that we're going to do is on Plato. This is an assignment that I've had some good luck with, some success with over the last few years. Mostly because this film came out by Disney Pixar a couple years back called Soul. Maybe you've seen it. It's an animated film. It's quite good. It's fascinating and heartwarming, and it'll bring you to tears, and it'll make you feel good. And so it's just a wonderful movie to watch. And I found that it could be used quite well in conjunction with some questions about Plato. So what's going on here? We're focusing for this assignment on the second of the two dialogues that Plato did on rhetoric, the two main ones at least. There's the Gorgias, which is an earlier one, and then there's Phaedrus, which is later, right? And the Gorgias is often known as the kind of the base version of rhetoric. It's a really bad kind of account of rhetoric. And then in the Phaedrus, we get a kind of a more positive, optimistic conception of what rhetoric could be, right? And it's all built around this business of the soul. And of course, if you've watched the videos and gone through the material, you'll know that there's three speeches that Plato or Socrates and Lysias go through in the dialogue, and it's all about love. And then in the third speech, Socrates gives this really interesting analogy of the chariot, and he's talking about the soul, right? So it's about love and it's about the soul. And then rhetoric, at the end of the dialogue, Socrates describes rhetoric's job as leading souls, knowing souls and leading souls. And it's all quite fascinating, but rhetoric is about the practical here and now, right? And so there's always this question of how do we do what Plato is talking about at the end of the dialogue? Because he doesn't say much. He just says, one should know souls, and one should know, once one knows the souls, then you can know the parts of a speech, and you can know how to lead an audience. But he doesn't really talk at all in any particular detail about the how of that. Now, as we'll see next week with Aristotle, Aristotle gives us a lot of mechanical information about process. He talks about the enthymeme. He talks about topoi and doxa, and it's all really concrete, and it's meant to be practical, right? It's here is what's happening when we are attempting to persuade. But Plato wants to talk about souls and leading souls, and that's the job of rhetoric. So this assignment then is an opportunity for us to think more concretely about that how question. How does one engage in rhetoric of persuasion of souls, right? So you're being asked to then get good on the Plato stuff, on the Phaedrus in particular. Make sure that you're good on the three speeches, particularly the last one on the soul. That's what's connected to the assignment, is this analogy of the chariot. And then that final chunk at the very end of the dialogue where Socrates is talking about rhetoric and what rhetoric's doing or what it should do. But again, that's limited. It's not very well sketched out. So then you want to turn to the movie, the Soul movie, and watch that and take notes and get good and familiar on how the movie is characterizing the soul. There's the before life, there's this business about personalities, and there's this business about spark, and there's lots of little interesting details that correspond nicely with the Phaedrus. So get good on Plato, get good on the film, and then turn to the paper. And the question that the paper is asking you to respond to is, how does the film help us understand the how of a rhetoric that is meant to lead and persuade souls, right? So it's an abstract kind of way of thinking about rhetoric, souls. What is that? So hopefully the film helps us think a little bit more concretely about the kind of the mechanics of the soul in terms of this world, right? Because in the movie, the main character is a soul that ends up in a body and ends up back down on Earth, and it's really about that kind of relationship between the immaterial and the immortal, but also the material and the mortal, right? And so we have kind of like dialectic is philosophy, and that's kind of like all that big abstract stuff. But rhetoric is about the particular, it's about the concrete, it's about this world and how we do, in practical terms, how we attempt to lead and persuade, right? So the question then is asking you to go through the film and see if the film helps us answer that question of how. So in the assignment description at the end there, it says, imagine yourself as like a persuasion coach or a speech coach, and you're talking to someone who wants to touch and affect and lead an audience in a certain direction, but doing this by going through Plato's noble rhetoric, right? So that's the whole business of souls. But again, how? Concretely, how do we do this? Does the film provide any interesting, useful insights in terms of like the resources of persuasion when it comes to souls and a noble rhetoric, right? So that's basically it. It's a challenging question, and I'm not saying that there is a perfect one right answer here, but it's mostly this is a process of you kind of grappling with and engaging with some challenging texts and some challenging ideas, but also ones that I think are still useful and relevant to think about how we live, how we think about things like purpose and passion, right? How we think about doing good in the world, and how we think about persuasion and speech that attempts to lead others. How are we doing that? Are we doing that just in ways that are like instrumental and coercive and self-gratifying, or are we doing it in ways that are meant to like embetter and improve and find the good within us and so on? These are some of the questions and challenges of this assignment. And so I hope you enjoy the process of kind of grappling with these questions and trying to come up with some response. Again, going through the film and the concrete examples that the film's providing to think about that question of like, how do we do what Plato's asking us to do? That's really what we're up to here. So I posted a couple of other videos that are just meant to be supplements on the different kind of ways that the ancient Greeks thought about love. There's like 8 different terms for love. Pay particular attention to agape, eros, and mania. They're very similar to the Phaedrus, the 3 speeches in the Phaedrus and the 3 kinds of love that are talked about in there. And there's another video on, this is based on Plato's dialogue, The Symposium, where he talks at most length about love and this business of the ladder of love. And you can think about love in terms of like more base and more noble, right? Plato's always about like the lower and the higher, right? So there's a ladder of love, they're kind of like a hierarchy of love. And hopefully those will help you think about the question a little bit more as well. So there you go. I hope you enjoy the process. You have 28 days, 27 days to work on this. That's a good amount of time. Might even be too much time if you just leave it too long. Please don't leave it until the last minute. This is going to take a bit of time to work through Plato, to work through the film, to think the question through. I hope you enjoy it, right? So if you have any problems watching this movie or accessing the film, please let me know. It's on Disney Plus. If you don't have access to Disney Plus, let me know. I do. I have a little student profile that I can just let you access, and I don't want you spending any money to do this assignment. So otherwise, you should be good to go. There's lots of materials for Plato. There's materials in the assignment posting, and everything should be there and clear. But if not, let me know, reach out, and we'll talk it through. So good luck. Hope all is well, and enjoy the paper.